Hi, I'm Darren. These are my hands, and today we're going to learn the story of this drawing of a large, nosed, muscle-bound swordsman slaying a troop of soldiers, seemingly signed by Sergio Aragonés in 1981. So, take a look at this barbarian warrior slicing his bloody sword through the guts of his opponents. See his massive upper body and his skinny legs. Look at the size of his nose. Without question, it's a great drawing and painting of a skilled swordsman apparently doing what he does best. But as you spend time viewing it, do you find yourself asking questions about it? What and who exactly is Sergio drawing here, if in fact it even is a Sergio drawing? I received an email a few days before Christmas from an anonymous Groo friend. He wrote, "Hi there. I stumbled across your YouTube channel, and your information on Sergio Aragonés is amazing." I'm sure a lot of people would disagree with that statement. I recently inherited an illustration from Sergio from 1981. I'm not even positive it is Groo himself, but I'd love for you to check it out. Let me know what you think of it and if you have any information on it. Thanks. Included was a photograph of this drawing of the big-nosed barbarian slaying this outfit of horned helmet-wearing soldiers. I could see from the photo that the image was framed. It was also skewed. There was glare on it from the glass. But Aragonés 1981 was in the bottom corner. The art and the signature looked a lot like Sergio's to me, so I was intrigued. I emailed back, asking for some better photos if possible, and details about how my anonymous Groo friend acquired this drawing. But I didn't think it was Groo. If this was 1981, consider. In 1982, Destroyer Duck has the first Groo the Wanderer comic. Just a few months after this drawing was made, would this drawing of the Proto-Groo evolve into Groo that quickly? It could, but I don't think that's what was going on. In 1981, we have this drawing titled Groo the Wanderer. He's not bare-chested, but he's wearing a jerkin. He doesn't have this helmet, but he's got a headband keeping his long, straight hair out of his face. He doesn't have a single broadsword like we've got here, but he's got a pair of katanas and no fur boots, just ugly, bare feet. If this was an evolution of this character happening over the course of a year, well, I guess it could happen, but perhaps an easier explanation is they are two different characters. Now take a look at this. 1977, 4 years earlier. Look at the cover of California State University Northbridge's Scene magazine. Sergio, Alfred E. Newman, Cain and Abel from DC's House of Mystery, and this cute little guy with a single tooth underbite. Look at that crook in his nose. That's Groo in 1977. And here he is again at the end of Scene magazine's interview with Sergio. What do you think? Does my initial assessment seem reasonable to you? I received a reply from my anonymous Groo friend. He writes, "This was part of the collection from my cousin who unfortunately passed away this year. He was the definition of collector. Everything he had was purely because he loved it. This very much might have been a commission piece that he had Sergio do for him. I couldn't find any paperwork if he did have it, but I know that he had the artist named Ken Macklin commission a piece for him. That I have the paperwork for. I've included some better photos and a picture of the back. There was nothing there, unfortunately. I hope to hear from you soon." Well, this was very interesting. A collector of comic art with other documented commissions. Sergio certainly was well known and loved in 1981, but mostly for Mad Magazine and his DC Comics work. If Sergio had Groo on the mind in 1981 and was trying to find an outlet for his comic that he could retain the rights to, I could see him drawing a similar barbarian for a commission while keeping Groo private while he worked out the publishing details. Now let's take a look at the back of the paper. Here we see the layout lines for a comic book page. So we can size this art at 11 by 17 inches, and it looks like someone was testing some watercolor on the back as well, which poses the question, who was responsible for coloring this artwork? It was time to reach out to Sergio for some answers. Now, I don't have a direct line to the maestro himself, but in very special occasions, I've been in contact with his family and colleagues. So I thought I'd see if maybe somebody could ask Sergio some questions about this art for me. It was just before Christmas when I sent out this message to Sergio's daughter. Hi, a couple days ago, a viewer sent me this photo, which looks a lot like something your dad may have drawn in 1981. I was wondering if you might be willing to ask Sergio a few questions about it. Hi, sure, I will ask Sergio. Thank you. 1. Is this Sergio's work? It sure looks like it. And does he remember creating it? Maybe it was a commission. 2. Did Sergio paint the work himself? 3. Did he have any historical or cultural inspiration in mind when he was creating this? And 4. Could this be a cousin of Groo? Well, it was Christmas time and time to play the waiting game. And while we wait, let's take a close look at this art and see if we can spy any clues as to what's going on. First of all, we've got this sword. Is it a falchion, a kukuri knife, maybe a Chinese guandao? Those are all more pole arms. Maybe this is a Ashante Akrafena. Maybe it's an Egyptian kopesh. It could be a ram dao, which is a Hindu ritual sword. You know, Sergio loves his history, but then again, maybe he just invented this. And how about this necklace and the earrings? When I see it, I think, man, that almost looks like it's inspired by Inca warriors. And then we've got this colorful knife hilt and the sheath. Again, it looks maybe South or Central American inspired to me. We've got this helmet with the horns and the skull. Maybe it's Viking, maybe it's mythic, maybe it's Turkish. I don't know. There's all sorts of ancient horned helmets. And look at the ribs on the horn and the skull. I'm not a big fan of Robert E. Howard, but I can imagine in those 1980s movies, helmets like this. Maybe it's something like what Thulsa Doom wore in the Conan movie. And down here at the feet, we've got fur boots, standard barbarian footwear. And there's lots more leather on his enemies' feet. How about the long hair of some of his enemies here? One has to be careful about generalizing, but maybe Sergio, growing up in Mexico, saw long hair tied or beaded or braided like some of these. And then we've got the hilts of the enemy swords. Some have balls and pommels. The barbarian himself has like this skull, and then others are more almost knife-like. Is that a skull there? And, of course, we've got to take a look at the hero himself. Look at his nose. It's big, but it's not that gourd-shaped nose, not that number 3 that we see on Groo. And his hair is kind of sticking out all over. His physique. Well, he's got a physique. Check out the muscles all over the place on this guy. They are conspicuously not Groo-like. We know that Sergio takes all sorts of inspiration from history and culture worldwide. So perhaps Sergio took all of it, mixed it up, and threw it in with some fantasy art and movies and simply just came up with his own creation. Maybe you see some inspiration from other fantasy comics or movies or some historical or cultural indications that I've missed. Let me know in the comments what influences you see in this drawing. And while you're at it, please consider subscribing to the channel and turning on the bell for notifications. And if you like this sort of video, please let me know by clicking the like button. I really appreciate your support, and I try to reply to every comment that you leave. So, after waiting for some time, I got a reply with the answers from Sergio. Sorry for the wait. It's definitely his work. Sergio doesn't remember the occasion. Well, that's cool. There wasn't really any question about that, I suppose. The artwork is brilliant, and when I look at the line work, the hatching, the flow of the lines, as well as the features of the characters, it had to be Sergio's pen behind this drawing. And while I'm no forensic analyst, that signature sure has to be his too. It's too bad he doesn't remember the occasion of the drawing, though. Our anonymous Groo friend doesn't have any other leads on how his cousin acquired the drawing, so if it was a commission to him, or if Sergio drew it for someone else, or just himself, we might not ever know for sure. One thing to note is there is no dedication written on this art. Often artists will include a short note to the recipient along with their signature. For example, Sergio might write, "To Darren, madly Sergio." And there is no such note on this piece. So, without going into further speculation, I think I'm going to leave it at that. As to my question of whether or not Sergio painted the drawing himself, the answer came back, no. Sergio does all sorts of art besides drawing. He does sculpture and can paint as well. It wouldn't be a surprise if he painted it. But if he didn't, the question is, who did? In 1981, well, that was before Tom Luth's time with Groo. But I figured I'd reach out to Tom anyway. He had always been so kind in answering my questions in the past, I figured I'd like to talk to Tom again. So in one of my last back and forths with him, I asked Tom what he might know about this art. I said, "Hi Tom, I hope you're enjoying retirement. I've got a question, and I know it's a long shot, but I've come across this Sergio drawing and asked him about the watercolor painting on it. He said he didn't paint it and doesn't remember who did. Maybe it's before your time working with Sergio, but I thought I'd ask if you recognize the art and maybe if you painted the colors." Tom responded, "That is a couple of years before I started on Groo, and sorry, I don't know who did the watercolor." I had figured as much. Thanks for looking. Do you think Gordon Kent could have been involved, or is it just as likely someone else who we'll never know? Sorry, I do not know. I believe Gordon was mostly a writer, but I could be mistaken. Well, that's too bad. Another cul-de-sac for my questions about this drawing. But Sergio's daughter did have another couple tidbits to share from Sergio about how this piece came together and who the swordsman is. In answer to my question about the historical and cultural inspiration, she says that Sergio is a huge history buff and always does serious research when he's drawing real-life people and objects. For example, every Groo fan knows that the ships in the Groo comics are based upon real ships with real sails and rigging in all the right places. If it weren't for Groo himself, those ships that Sergio draws could sail through any storm that the sea could blow up. And when Sergio draws historical armies, he always takes time to ensure the costumes are just right. But Sergio didn't indicate any particular historical time or place for this drawing because it is an imagined work of art of a barbarian we've all heard of. In answer to my tongue-in-cheek suggestion that this barbarian might be Groo's cousin, Sergio replied, "It is actually a drawing of Conan." Wow, what a find! Now we can see what Conan in Groo's universe would actually look like if he was drawn in Sergio's style, not that strange cross-universe mashup, as great as it was, between Sergio and Thomas Yeats from the 2014 Groo vs. Conan crossover series. And the costume, and the helmet, and the sword, well, it all makes sense now. I hope that you've enjoyed taking a look at this Sergio drawing as much as I have. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Take a look over here for some more videos that the algorithm thinks that you like. Again, make sure you're subscribed, and I will see you guys whenever I see ya. Take care, everyone.